Hi, today I'd love to talk about how when we learn to lead from the heart as leaders, it can bring incredible connections and opportunities to us, but really bringing some awareness about really the pitfalls, I guess, of leading from ego. So, leading from the heart as opposed to leading with our ego. And I'd love to share a story with you, if I may. I was actually speaking to my partner Kev about this the other day, and he brought up a memory about a situation that we were in a few years ago that I'd love to share with you. So, I had been in business for about 4 years. I'd invested really heavily in a lot of high level coaching and training programs. I'd kind of positioned myself at that level. And even though I was hanging out in those arenas and with those communities and kind of, being seen to be in those communities, actually, I wasn't really walking my talk. I was struggling quite a bit within my business. It was okay. I say struggling. It was okay, but I wasn't bringing in the consistent income, and I was finding things really difficult. And a friend of mine kept telling me about a personal development program that I was really, really opposed to. Anyway, because it was really triggering me, right? So I needed to do it, but I was really opposed to it. And I didn't like the ethos. I didn't like the way that they went around about things. But in the end, I decided that I was going to do it because I knew that because I was so resistant to it, I needed to step into it. So it's like, let's see what happens and let's do it anyway. So the name of the company that runs the personal development program is Landmark. I'm sure that many of you who are watching this have either done it or heard of it, and you'll either love it or hate it. To be honest with you, I'm not sure. Some days I love it, some days I hate it, but I am very grateful for the lessons that it taught me. One of the lessons that it taught me was around my ego and how I show up as a leader, but also how I build relationships with other people. And I've always been a great relationship builder, and it's always been people first. And I've always really cared for people in general. I've really wanted to develop people. And I remember that when I was in corporate, I really cared for my teams. I really wanted to make a difference. I wanted to help them. My ultimate objective when I was managing teams was to help people to be promoted. And it used to happen all of the time. So it wasn't good for my bottom line, right? Because I had to keep retraining people to fill their places. But I felt that as a leader, and as a leader of those teams, and to manage their personal development, it was like, well, it's a no-brainer. If I have your best interest at heart, then I want to help you to be able to land the job that you desire or get the income that you desire. So a lot of my team used to get promoted, and it was because of the work that I did with them. And then I remember very clearly that I went for an interview when I was in corporate for a job that I really, really wanted. And it was probably a little bit too senior for me, to be honest with you. But the feedback that I got was that I cared about my team too much. So therefore, she didn't think that I'd make a good leader within her team. And it really struck me for two reasons. First of all, I just thought, well, hang on a minute, what does that mean? Does that mean that when I care for my team, when I when I lead from the heart, does that mean that I'm not a good leader? Does it mean that I'm weak? So I really started to question my leadership. Bearing in mind at that point, I'd been a leader in corporate for at least 10 years. So I was a senior leader and I was an experienced leader, and I was getting results within my team, but hey, that was her opinion. And secondly, it really started to change the whole dynamics of how I saw myself within the business. And I thought, well, if I want to get promoted and I want to be seen as a leader and I don't want to be seen as weak, I need to toughen up my act. And that's certainly something that I started to do, and I started to really probably be a little bit more harsh with my leadership. And I look back now at the way that I was in corporate in that way, and I thought, well, it might have positioned me in a better way within corporate, but did it really help my team? Did it help me? Did it feed my soul? Probably not. But I just wanted to bring that to you because it was a really interesting opportunity that I had to really understand, or to form a belief about myself, that if I'm soft, I'm weak. If I care, I'm weak. So therefore I need to toughen up. I need to, this is the definition of a leader. And I'd really love to know actually from you, like, have you ever felt that way? Because I speak to so many women that feel like that. They're like, the only way that I can get forward in my corporate career or within my business is to, basically like show up in that male energy and not have any of the female softness or the female energy around it. So that kind of sets the caveat. That was my mindset. So I left corporate because I was hating my job. I was completely burnt out. It was a lovely company to work for, but I didn't want to be there, right? I left my job. I started my coaching business. I started investing in some very high level coaches and in coaching communities. And I paid them a lot of money to basically learn how to run my business the way that I had been a leader with it in corporate. And I feel like when I first started doing my landmark program, that I was still in that mindset and in that energy. So there was a lot of ego that was going into that room. So I think that even though I'd made the decision to go there, there was a lot of ego that was involved in it. And what I mean by that is that I walked into that room and I was like, well, I'm too good to be in this room. And I need to be the person that's facilitating this. I need to be the person that's running this. I know more than these people, all of these people, because I've invested this much money in my personal development and I've been on these courses and I've worked with these coaches, right? This was all going on behind the scenes. So then when it came time for me to start sharing within the group and the community, and this is the thing that my partner was talking to me about, I walked up to that microphone in my ego. I didn't walk in being led from my heart. I walked it up with my ego. And I put on a complete show. I was speaking from a place of ego. I was speaking from a place of inflated authority. I was talking about all the things that I did. I was talking about all the people that I was connected with, all the communities that I led, all my clients that I was working with. I basically showed up on that stage that really was encouraging me to be vulnerable, and I wasn't being vulnerable at all. So I wasn't being vulnerable. I was standing there trying to prove my worth to all the people in the room, to the group leader, and also to myself. I was standing there going, hey, look at me. I'm so freaking amazing. Look at me. Instead of actually showing my humanness. Now, what happened as a result of this is that it came time, and also I just want to say that my partner Kev was also on this course with me and witnessed all of it, so definitely has his own opinions about it and had his own opinions about it at the time, and we've spoken extensively about it. He also went up and shared, but Kev went up and shared very vulnerably. And he shared from the heart, and he kind of stuttered a little bit and made a few mistakes, but he really shared vulnerably. So I went up perfect showgirl, perfect speaker, presenter, and he went up in a completely different energy. And then this is what happened at lunchtime. I had so many people that came up to me and go, oh my goodness, you're so inspiring. I love what you're doing. La 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 la, like, but then they left. So they came and said, hey, I really love your work. I love what you're doing. And then they left the room. They left me. And everybody left for lunch. And I was like, on my own in this room, on my own. and nobody invited me for lunch. So I called up my partner Kev, and Kev had also left the room, bearing in mind that we'd made a pact that we were going to attend the course together, but we weren't going to hang out together. So we wanted to have our own individual experiences. So we were showing up there and we were leaving there together, but while we were there, we were separate, right? So this was already a pact, right? That we weren't going to hang out together. So I called Kev and I was like, where are you? And he was like, I'm just having lunch with so-and-so, so-and-so. We found this amazing food market. We're in London. And I was like, well, I've got no one to have lunch with. And I got really upset. And I was like, I've got no one. No one wants to have lunch with me. No one wants to have lunch with me. And then it suddenly struck me that no one wanted to have lunch with me because they didn't relate to me. They hadn't connected with me. When I went up and I had my opportunity to share on the stage in front of this huge auditorium, I didn't connect with a single person because they didn't see themselves in me. They saw me as someone who had their shit together, who was running, the way that I positioned myself was like, I've got this successful business and I'm like, I'm working with all these clients. And yes, that was the case. I wasn't showing up and I wasn't lying. I did have clients and I was running a business, but I was still not happy with what I was doing. I was really insecure with what I was doing. So guess what? I was showing up in my ego. I was trying to prove myself. I was trying to prove myself to everyone and showing up in that perfect put together way. No one resonated with me and no one wanted to have lunch with me. And I realized at that moment that we can show up in our true essence and in our leadership and with our authority and position ourselves as leaders and experts in our field, thought leaders. But it's still so important to connect with people because that imperfection connects. People need to see our humanness. And it's a lesson that I've learned so many times. And I remember back to when I was in corporate, and the senior leader, the very senior leader that I was being interviewed with by, telling me that I was too nice and that I thought too much about my team and I wouldn't make a great leader. If I had the opportunity to go back to that interview and to reply to that piece of feedback, I would have said to her, well, that's great. That's your opinion. And if you feel like that about leadership, I don't want to work in your team because that's not the way that I want to lead. And it's really interesting when I kind of recall that experience when I was on the stage and I'm really connecting with the emotions that I felt at the time. And I realized that through sharing this with you, this is something that I'm really, really passionate about. And this is something that I'm passionate about myself and about my clients and the communities that I lead and that I show up in, and that I that I'm so grateful of the fact that I can connect with people in that way and I can kind of share my wisdom and connect with them. Speaking on stage, whatever that might be, whether you're speaking on a huge stage with like thousands and thousands of people, or whether you're in a small intimate group, whether you're running an intimate women's circle, whether you're showing up on Zoom, or whether you're going coaching a client one-on-one, or whether you're going and either speaking or being involved in a networking event, it's all speaking, it's all presenting ourselves. We need to remember that there will be people in that room that will be looking for a leader. They'll be looking for someone to connect with. And they're not necessarily going to be attracted to the big, shiny, professional, I've got my shit together, perfect human. that's standing on that stage. They might admire that human, but I do truly believe that when we are speaking on our stages, it's really important that we take ourselves off that pedestal and we actually connect with our audience in a way that we can still show up in our expertise and our leadership, but we can encourage people then to start conversations with us, because that's where the transformation comes from. I don't feel inspired by people that I can't connect with, and equally I don't want to be that kind of leader. I don't want to be that kind of speaker. I want to share my humanness so that people can connect with me. And when I'm talking to you and sharing that with you, I've actually, this live that I'm doing now, I've said speak from your heart as opposed from speaking from your ego. And it's interesting because in human design I've got an open heart, and for those of you who, like me, you have open hearts within human design, we have a tendency to try and prove our worth all of the time. We're trying to prove our worth to others. We're trying to prove our worth to ourselves. And the heart center is also known as the ego center. So actually the heart and the ego are the same within human design. So if you have a undefined or open heart in human design, I just want you to know that you've got nothing to prove. You've got nothing to prove to yourself. You've got nothing to prove to others. All you need to do is just stand on whatever that stage might look like, however small or however big it is, and just really share from the heart and talk about what you want to talk about and what you know that your audience need to hear from you. And when you're speaking from your heart and you can really tap into your heart instead of being rah, 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 and I'm so freaking good at this and look how amazing I am. When you're actually coming from that place, from the heart, then people will connect with you and they'll come and work with you, and you will build beautiful relationships, and you'll be invited into things. You'll be invited to speak on other people's stages. You'll be invited to speak on other people's podcasts. People will be able to feel your heart. I call it soul speaking. It's when you're speaking from your soul as opposed to speaking from your head and your ego. So I just wanted to share that with you today. Hi Sophia, it's lovely to see you, my gorgeous darling. I hope you're well. Thank you for watching me. Thank you for watching live. Thank you for watching the replay. And as always, let's open up a conversation about this. I'd really love to know how you feel about this. Do you have any resistance about showing up as yourself? Like, do you value yourself? Do you value who you truly are? Do you feel like you have to put on this mask of perfection all of the time to be seen as a credible leader, to be seen as, a credible businesswoman, to be seen as someone that is to be desired and admired? Or are you willing to go out there and share yourself, warts and all? Are you willing to embrace your imperfections? Are you willing to go out there and make mistakes and actually not give a shit about it because you're like, well, everyone makes mistakes, so I don't have to show up as perfect me? When you do that, it's like you create this beautiful freedom, because it means that you can just show up as yourself every single day, and that in itself creates freedom. That in itself, like, you give yourself permission to just be, and in turn you give your clients and your audience and your friends and your family and everyone that's in your arena, everyone that's in your world, you also give them permission to be them. And that is a beautiful gift, and a beautiful gift to put out into the world. Sending you lots of love. Love you, Sophia. Sending you lots of love today, and let me know how you feel about this, and let's open up conversations around it, because I'd love to know, and I'd also love to help you if you feel that this is your next step, if you feel that you want to step down from the self-appointed podium and actually come drop down into your heart and share from your heart as opposed to your ego. Sending you lots of love today, and I'll see you all soon.